It's a beautiful day here in Manhattan. I'm doing this vlog post from my rooftop, which is just amazing. It has a gorgeous view. I have a view of New Jersey and of Manhattan downtown. Today I'm going to talk about one aspect of being an ally to youth and what it means to be an ally to youth. It starts with recognizing that youth are an oppressed group. Our role as adult allies is to help youth heal from the power imbalance that has affected them in society. We help them heal by restoring just power dynamics so that youth can be treated with the same respect as adults. Anytime an adult tells a child, "You don't talk back to me," or "just because I said so," in these moments, they are practicing what's called adultism. Think about if an adult said these statements to another adult. Most people wouldn't have to think twice to realize that this is a dysfunctional relationship. But somehow when it comes to viewing an adult speaking with a child, many of us accept these power dynamics because we were children, and when we were children, this is what we were taught and this is how we were spoken to. And if it was okay for us, it's got to be okay for them, right? Acknowledging their oppression brings us closer towards acknowledging our own oppression, and that can be a really scary thing. Adults who aren't practicing mindful youth work will basically do anything they can subconsciously to restore the power balance that they're used to, which is that the adult is in power and the child is not. And so they'll continue to assert their power over youth, not because they're mean or because they're bad, but because that's what they're used to. And because adults having power over children is ingrained in our patterns of behavior. We learn this early on. We start out dependent, completely dependent on adults as an infant. I'm going to tell you a very simple story, something that I witnessed, but it's a very typical story of an adult abusing their power over youth. And I'll offer some ways about how the individual might have gone about things differently if he was acting as an ally rather than as a superior. So a few years ago, I was working at a nonprofit, and we were working in the food justice field. We did a few food demos, we went to supermarkets, and we would showcase the food that they had. The coordinator working with the youth had laid out all of the materials that they would need, and he laid out carrots and apples, and they were going to make a salad. So the youth started to chop up the vegetables, and they started to prepare the food. And what happened was this. One of the adults in charge went over to one of the youth and said, "You're cutting the apple too small. Don't cut the apple like that. The apple needs to be in bigger slices." So I saw this, and since I was ultimately in charge of the program, I went over and I intervened, and I said, "No, I think it's okay for the youth to cut the apple however they like to cut it." And the youth continued to cut the apple into small pieces, and that was the end of that. The next day, I got a phone call from this person who had told the youth to cut the apple the way he wanted it cut. And he said, "I really felt that what happened yesterday was inappropriate because I really knew how the apple should have been cut. I wanted it to be in bigger pieces, and I don't understand why you had to let the youth do whatever they wanted, because I wanted something different." Now, this was an opportunity, this food demo. It was an opportunity for youth to feel that they could impact people's health choices by showcasing a new food for their community. I wanted the youth to take ownership over what they were doing, but in his mind, it was more about control, and it was more about the adult being in charge. Now, on the surface level, many people would have seen the instructions from an adult and not questioned it. It's a very typical scenario. We see adults giving youth instructions all the time. My general rule, though, is an adult should give instructions to youth for two main reasons. One, if they're in danger of harming themselves, or two, if they're in danger of harming someone else. Now, the apple was being cut perfectly fine. It was being cut into small pieces, where the adult had preferred to have it cut into larger pieces. There was no danger involved. So why did the adult feel the need to intervene? When youth start to exercise their power, the adults start to feel less powerful. We start to see the shift in power dynamics. And if we're not practicing mindfulness, and if we are not engaging with our own thoughts and our own feelings at the moment, we start to react rather than respond. But it's so important for us to be mindful, because if we continue to exercise our power over youth, then youth begin to disengage, because as soon as people start to feel powerless, they start to disengage, and the last thing we want is a disengaged group of youth conducting a food demo. There are a lot of ways we can combat this within our own selves. When we start to feel like we have this urge to give youth an instruction, there are a few questions we can ask ourselves. The first question is, what is happening within me right now? What am I thinking? Why do I feel the need to be in control right now in this moment? What's the worst that could happen if I don't regain control or power right now. And that's a good indication of whether someone's in danger. If you feel the worst that can happen is that someone might be in danger, then that's the right time to intervene. But if the worst that can happen is that your apple salad looks a little bit different than you wanted, then that's a notification to you that it's time to start to notice your feelings and to try to keep them in check so that you can be there as an ally for the youth. Once you've got yourself in check, it's time to look around. See, what experience are the youth having right now? How is this going? Is this working? Are they engaged? Because when youth are engaged, and when youth have ownership over what they're doing, that's when they learn, and that's when they grow, and that's when change happens.